Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wildy Ahmad Fayadhi from University of Lambung Mangkurat Banjarmasin that have been student exchange in Universitas Sultan Ageng Tirta Yasa Banten. Here I'm going to be presenting the challenges among multilingual speakers of English. So this kind of presentation contain what is the definition of multilingual speakers, are they same as polyglot, and what kind of challenges that multilingual speakers face and how to overcome those kind of problems. By the subtitle, Navigating Language Diversity in English Communication, which means how to navigate among the different dialect, among the different lexical, among the different races of English speaker into the one of English as a lingua franca union. So the table of content in this kind of presentation, the first is introduction, contains the background, why this kind of problem is risen up, and how English become lingua franca in the end of the day. And the secondly is the objective, why we should learn this kind of presentation. And the third is definition of the multilingual speakers and the differences between the polyglot and the example of those two multilingual speakers and polyglot. And the second is challenges among multilingual speakers. So it's which challenges that multilingual speakers face when using English, whether in the side of vocabulary, in the lexical, in the grammar, in the morphology, in the phonetic and phonology, and so in the content of pragmatic or even semantic problem. And the third is strategies for overcoming challenge, which how the multilingual speaker can overcome challenge with those tips and tricks that I will be given in the third chapter. So now moving on the chapter 1, it is introduction, content, the background, and the objective, and also the definition of the multilingual speaker. Now moving on to the background, how the English as lingua franca is raised up. So now let's see in the 21st century, in the 2023 now, the English has become the most prominent language that has been spoken from the many people in the around of the world, which mean English become lingua franca. That lingua franca, which mean English has been spoken by many people from the country. That their country is not English as the first language, which like Indonesia, for example, Indonesia only have one language, which means your mother tongue as the first language, and the second language is Indonesian, which means English in Indonesian people is used only for as the foreign language, which means English only used for the foreign affair, like talking to the native speaker, for example, teaching English in the classes, for example, from studying abroad purposes, for example, which means English has become a lingua franca. Now, how English becoming lingua franca? At the very first place, the reason is the globalization, which why? Because the most largest English spoken country, America, already conquer all of the all of the economical situation, all of the economical affair, like so many products come from the USA, which mean in the global trade affair, English has been used as the lingua franca for the globalization. And also you can take example from your devices, from your computer or smartphone. A lot of them are used English, right? Which means English already conquer of the globalization affair. And now the second reason is from the perspective of the socio-historical. Let's take it back from the hundred years ago, whenever Indonesia is not become Indonesia anymore. Indonesia was become Majapahit Empire, for example. Now, English and France in the past already, I'm sorry, England and France in the past already become a rival to colonialize and to conquer a lot of island, a lot of country in the past, which mean the country that has been conquered in France and in England willy-nilly must be spoken English to understand those affairs, right? But then, in the end of the colonialization era, France decided to take back their troops, to take back their colonialization country because of their leader Napoleon Bonaparte is not in the fit, right? He was not become healthy anymore, and willy nilly they took back their troops back to the France, and let alone England become a single conqueror of the world, so that English become lingua franca in the historical perspective. Now, let's take imagine if the French already conquer so many countries rather than England, France become a lingua franca in the fact. Now, the objective of this kind of presentation, we have outlined several keyword or key objective. Right? The first is by the learning this kind of presentation, you can analyze the definition of the multilingual speakers, who are they, and what is language they spoken, and what is the criteria that can be indicator of the multilingual speaker. Is multilingual speaker only can be used first foreign language, second foreign language, and so on and so on. And the secondly is what is the differences between multilingualism and polyglot? Is that the same as the definition? Because yeah, both multilingual and polyglot are same in the learning foreign language. Both of them are master to learn foreign language like Indonesian trying to speak English, for example. But what is the difference between them? And the third is we can discuss the multilingual speaker challenges, what kind of challenges and how to overcome. And the fourth is provide strategies for overcoming challenge, which contain tips and tricks, for example, like what kind of website or what kind of application that can be used to overcome challenges for multilingual speaker. Now, what is the definition of the multilingual speakers? Multilingual speakers refers to an individual or the person who has an ability or who have skill to speak and understand multiple language, which means they have understand not only single language but also multiple language, whether Indonesian English, for example, Indonesian Arabic, for example, Indonesian Spanish, for example, proficiently, which means they have been spoken and they master those kind of languages. Now, multilingualism can manifest in various forms, right? The first is bilingualism, which means you can master one your mother tongue and one your foreign language. For example, you have already mastered Indonesian and English, Indonesian and Arabic, Indonesian and Japan, for example. That kind of bilingualism. And the secondly is trilingualism. Trilingualism, which means you have already conquered one of your mother tongue and two foreign language, which like you have already mastered Indonesian, but also you already master English and Arabic, for example, or you have already mastered Indonesian, but also you already master Japan and Korean, for example, or you have already mastered Indonesian, but also you have already mastered German and French, for example. And the third is multilingualism, which means you have already mastered more than two foreign languages and one of your mother tongue, for example. Like those kind of two people in this kind of picture. In the left side, you can see the Fikinaki. He already mastered 5 language through international what the kind of application. They have already mastered it through the random people video call. And also the secondly is this kind of guys. He was a brother of Raden Ajeng Kartini that have already known in the Indonesian history as the most oldest known multilingual speaker of Indonesian history. His name is Raden Mas Panji Sosrokartono. Now let's take a look at the Fikinaki. Fikinaki can be multilingual speaker because he already mastered 5 kind of language actively and spoke it, and in the between a foreign speaker. And also Raden Mas Panji Sosrokartono, He was master 36 languages, including Netherlands, including Germany, including France, English, and so on. Why? Because he taught in the Netherlands University at the past time and become the interpreter and become the translator there so that he can be proactively become the multilingual speaker and master 36 different foreign languages. Wow, it's kind of so fantastic multilingual throughout in Indonesian history. We should be proud to have a people, to have the prominent and prodigy people like those two people. And now there is the question: is multilingualism the same as polyglot? Now, according to the source swaplanguage.com, the answer is no. Why? Now, let's take a look at the polyglot definition. The polyglot, which means they master a foreign language and learn language only the purposes of the learning language, which means polyglot become passive speaker. In contrast, multilingualism is usually a term for a community where more than two languages are spoken and used in everyday life. Now, let's underline this kind of word, used in everyday life, which means multilingualism become active speaker in the foreign language. So, which means if Vicky Naki and Raden, mas brother of R.A. Kartini just now, is passively spoke foreign language, he become only polyglot. Otherwise, if he actively spoken and used in everyday life, those kind of foreign language, they become multilingualism. Now, moving on the second chapter, the challenges among multilingual speakers. What kind of boundaries that the development of multilingual becomes slow to speak their foreign language? So yeah, challenge one. It is kind of phonetic and phonology aspect in this kind of pronunciation challenges. First thing, phonetic variability. Now, as we know, different language has different alphabetical system, right? For example, like Arabic use hijaya, Russian use Cyrillic, Chinese use kanji, Japanese use hiragana and katakana, Korean use hangul. Those kind of different language also has different their own unique alphabet. Now, this kind of different phonetical variability make challenges among of people that, for example, like Japanese people trying to understand English, they should try to understand the Latin alphabet first rather than only they use another alphabet, right? Now let's take a look what kind of limitation that from the this kind of phonetic variability. Now, my name in English is also the same as Indonesian because Indonesian in English also have the same letter, right? They use the Latin letter. Now, my name is Wildy, W-A-I-L-D-Y, Wildy. Now, but if we try to write my name in Arabic that use hijayah, my name is become waw, alif, ya, lam, dal, and ya. My name is become Wildy. So this is become different, right? Now let's take example from my name become Mandarin language, for example. Mandarin language, my name become Firudi. I repeat, Firudi. Which means if you, and also the limitation is if you try to translate my Chinese form language of Wildy become Firudi to English again, my name changed from Wildy to Ferdi. So there is the limitation from phonetic variability. And the second challenges is silent letters. Now, English already has the silent letters, unlike the Indonesian that all of those letter is pronounced, right? For example, like bomb, it is silent B in the end of the word, and knife, it is silent K in the beginning of the word. And what hour, it is silent H in the beginning of the letter, right? And the third is regional aspect. Now, English is not only have a single accent; they have so many accent according to region that English spoken, but The second most famous accent is in American English and British English, right? So American and English also has different pronunciation, has different their own phonetic and phonological system. So take a look from the water, for example. In the American English, you can only simply pronounce it like water, water. But in the British, it is silent like a silent R, like water, water, or even water. The T is also silent even if the more advanced British. Now let's look at the second example is Harry Potter. In the American English, you can only simply pronounce it like Harry Potter, Harry Potter. But in the most British accent, the more British accent, I said British accent is Harry Potter with a silent R and a silent T, Harry Potter. And also the fourth is homophone parity. Now the definition of homophone itself is like two almost pronounced word or the word with the pronunciation that almost similar, like 3 and 3, for example, like 11 and 11. Maybe it is quite challenging for the Indonesian English speaker because yeah, the pronunciation in Indonesia is simple. What you see from the word is what you pronounce in your mouth. That is Indonesian. But English is different. You should try to do the more exercises to learn English. And the second challenge is vocabulary and idiomatic expression challenges. Now, at the first is word choice. Word choice, which mean how the multilingual speaker decided to choose this vocabulary, this kind of word. Maybe a lot of multilingual already become confused because yeah, several of the English vocabulary has the remain same or the almost similar meaning, right? Like lend and borrow, it is almost same meaning, or also the word that have similar pronunciation, like complement and compliment. And the second problem is idioms and colloquialism. Now, English also have slang, right? According to their urban culture. So you cannot translate the word by word or textually, but also you also must understand the context of the speaking itself. Let's take an example from piece of cake. Piece of cake, if you try uh, to translate it word by word, it will become kepingan kue or irisan kue. But if you try to translate it contextually, you will understand that piece of cake is colloquialism, which means uh, sesuatu yang mudah, for example. Or I'm all ears, for example. If you want to try to translate it textually, word by word, which means that saya mendengarkan semuanya, for example. But if you want to try to understand it and try to translate it contextually, it has the different meaning, which means saya orangnya pendengar. And the third is contextual usage, which means English has the word that have multiple meaning according to the context that will be used. For example, in the word cool, cool is not only the word that's stated for temperature, but also it can be used for the interjection. For example, ah, that's cool, which means ah, that's awesome. And also the word well. Well is not the noun that's be used for only for the storage of the water, but also well also can be used as the preposition. Well, I'm not going to understand you. Or run. Run is not only verb that you use by trying to jogging, for example, but also run. Also the vocabulary or verb that used for the running business, for example. And the fourth is academical versus conversational word, which mean in the English is not only a vocabulary that we use only for daily use, but also there is a special term that we use for the academical purposes. For example, guess. A guess, if you try to put it on academic writing, your academic writing is not be accepted because yeah, there is academical term for guess. It is hypothesize, and so on, like agree. Agree in the academical purposes, the vocabulary is concur. So that is different. And the third challenge is in the term of morphology and syntaxis context, which mean in grammar and syntax challenges. So in the first is sentence structure, which mean like Indonesian and English has different diterangkan and menerangkan, like belajar malam. In Indonesian, belajar is diterangkan and malam is menerangkan. But if you want to try to speak it in English, it is different, right? It is not like study night, for example, but the right is night study, menerangkan, diterangkan. Naik menerangkan, study, diterangkan. So that is different. And also the second is verb tenses, while in a different language, it also has different tenses. Unlike Indonesian, there's only has no verb tenses. All of those verbs always same whether you want to try it in the past, present, or in the future. Now let's take a look. In English has 16 tenses like present, future, past, and past perfect, and also has different form like simple, continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. But if you want to try in Arabic, Arabic only has two tenses, which mean fa'lul mudari, which stated in the present and future, and also fa'lul madi, which stated in the past. And the third is article and preposition, which maybe it is more problematic and complex for Indonesian because yeah, it is like in, on, and at confusion, which in Indonesia those kind of two things are only in the single vocabulary D. But in English it has three different preposition in, on, and at, which trigger the confusion between Indonesian speaker. And the second is article. Now, article in the different language also has different grammatical system, right? In Indonesia, we only use the like si or sang, which stated the definitive people. But in English, I also use the for the definitive. But in the Spanish, they use la for female and el for male definitive person. So there is different. And the fourth is verb agreement, which two of main common problem that use that have trigger for most of, especially in Indonesia multilingualism, is how to use to be and the confusion between regular and irregular verb in the end of the day. So yeah, moving to the last chapter. How? There is so many problems. How we want to overcome those of challenges. Now, here we are tips and tricks for me that can you use as multilingual speaker to overcome this kind of challenge. Okay, at the first, you can try to join language clusters and courses because yes, we know so many English courses like the Royal English, EF, or LIA, for example, to do the exercise on the to develop your English skill. Or also you can try do some TOEFL tests, do some maybe you can look for free TOEFL tests in Instagram and another social media, and also you can use them um, English learning application like Novo, for example, or Duolingo to learn your English skill through your smartphone. And then secondly, you can try the language exchange program. If you have an opportunity to pass ISMA or International Indonesian Student Mobility Award or C teacher, Southeast Asian teacher, which this kind of program try to you to teach English in Indonesian to Southern Asian country like Malaysia, Brunei Darussalam, Philippines, and Thailand. So you can try to your English skill to train your English skill there. Or you maybe in the master program you wanna apply the LPDP and you have opportunity to study abroad. Maybe you can practice your English and become multilingual in abroad. And the third is online resources, which mean in this kind of era, it's kind of epoch, There are so many this kind of online resources that you can be get in the YouTube and the Ruang Guru, for example. So you wanna try to learn English, you can try to open, for example, learn English in YouTube or learn English in Ruang Guru. And the next is you wanna can try read and watch English content everywhere and anywhere, because yeah, maybe you can try to see multilingual student life in the YouTube, for example, to see how they can be assimilate with the local people there, for example. Or maybe you wanna can try English book, no matter that what kind of book, but the important thing that it's English book. Maybe you can try to read English manga, for example. If you like One Piece, Naruto, for example, you should try to read the English manga to develop your English skill. And also the next is you can look for language tutor, whether mentor from your roommate, for example, or teacher or lecturer, or even you can try like Fikinaki does. He tried to learn his foreign language from to talk with the foreigner, for example. And next is self confidence building. You can try to develop your self confidence by trying to join public speaking classroom, for example, public speaking workshop, for example. And then you can try to practice it to speak in front of mirror. And then you can try it to speak in the front of crowd or many people. And the last is feedback and patience. Now, try to approach your friend or senior to try to give you feedback what kind of disadvantage or what kind of disgrace or what kind of mistakes you have already spoken in English, for example. And be patient because there is no any single process that is instant. Everything becomes step by step. Everything should be on the process. So yeah, maybe that's all from me. To close my presentation, I quote one of the quotes from the ex-president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. He said that if you talk a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Which means foreign language is important to make the foreigners become impressive. So yeah, maybe that's all from me. Thank you so much for your appreciation. And the last I say, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.